Welcome to another episode of Lifting, Life, and Everything in Between. These are your boys from Primate. I'm Kevin, this is Billy, and
Hello.
Today's topic, we're talking about the three big lifts. Now, what are they?
So the three big lifts are the bench, the deadlift, and the squat.
Yeah. So, do you mind going more in detail with them? Flat bench, what's involved?
Yeah, so it's the flat bench, it's the barbell squat, and the conventional deadlift generally. What's involved in the flat bench is primarily your chest muscles and your shoulders. But a lot of people also use leg drive and they use their lats. So some people call it a full body movement, but primarily it's chest, shoulders, and triceps.
Yeah, so totally nailed it on the point there. How I view it, the flat bench, mainly a chest exercise, to be completely honest. A bit of the triceps, a bit of the anterior delt, which is the front delt. Squat, lower body, quads, hamstrings, glutes, deadlifts, everything in the posterior chain. Now, why do we place such high value on them?
I think they're just the most functional movements. Well, for sure, the squat and the deadlift are as functional as it gets because we need to be able to pick something up off the floor, and we need to be able to sit down in a chair, get up off a chair. As far as the bench press goes, that one is not as natural, in my opinion, to everyday living. And I think a lot of people have trouble activating their chest muscles when they're trying to learn the bench because we've just haven't had the necessity to develop a muscle-mind connection with the chest. But in saying that, as far as aesthetics goes, you need a big chest.
Yeah, fair enough. So I completely overlooked the fact that these three compound movements, these three big lifts, are for functionality purposes. For me, why it's so important personally is because they recruit the most muscles. You're getting your biggest bang for your buck. You're moving the biggest weights. And why I regard them so highly is because to build big muscles, you need to be moving big weights.
Yep.
And with these three lifts, you're moving big weights compared to your bicep curls, your tricep extensions, your leg extensions, you name it. Now, you can grow muscles from those machines, those accessory movements, but these three movements, the bench, the squat, the deadlifts, no comparison. They reign supreme in muscle development, and that's why I value them.
Yeah.
As far as the functionality side of things, I'm not too sure.
So we've always believed in push-pull legs as the three fundamental movements to program around. But recently I've read online that there are three more fundamental movements, and that is the lunge, the hinge, and the carry. Now, luckily, the lunge is something that we already do. In fact, we do variations of it. We do walking, split, and static. But the hip hinge, we don't focus too much on, and the carry, we have never done in our lives.
All right, so let's break it down a bit. Because I'm very unfamiliar. I'm not familiar, with the hip hinge and the carry.
The carry.
But let me just go in a ballpark from what I'm hearing. The hip hinge, is that kind of just a hip extension movement? And the carry, I'm guessing that's kind of like farmer walks.
Yeah, exactly. I'm imagining booty bumps or glute drives for the hip hinge and farmer carries.
To be honest, hip hinge... Yeah, so you're right. The hip thrust, that's a hip hinge, but if that's the case, deadlifts is also a hip hinge. The lunge is also a hip hinge to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So I think we are incorporating them.
Yeah.
Unless we have our definition wrong.
No, I think we're definitely doing it if that was the hip hinge. If it includes power movements like the kettlebell swing, for example,
That's a hip hinge.
that's not something that we do.
No, it isn't. Again, it depends on your goal. My goal is just to keep building muscle.
Yeah.
My goal is to bulk cut in that vicious, cyclic cycle, if that makes sense. I'm
You
in
just
that
want to be a
full
mass
force.
monster.
Yeah. I just want to do what's fun, and building muscle for me, body composition to me, that's most fun.
Yeah.
Now, would doing kettlebell swings help build muscle? Hell yeah. But would it build as much muscle as a squat? Now that's where I've got to assess things
Yeah. Yeah.
and program around.
It is a much more isolated movement compared to the squat. Doesn't use as many muscles. So on top of that, you can't go as heavy.
I get what you're completely right. You can't go as heavy. But as far as the muscle goes, I think it uses very similar muscles. I mean, it's a knee extension and hip extension movement, which in a squat you kind of get.
Yeah.
The load isn't as much though.
Yeah.
So, to me, for my purpose, a squat is always going to be superior.
Yeah. What about the carry?
So you see the carry. I'm trying to
picture it?
find. I'm trying to find a use for the carry. I'm trying to rationalize it, and all I can think of, to be completely honest, is for grip strength.
Yep. Grip strength, forearm strength. Yep.
Yep, and that's not something I want to focus on. So I kind of, I'm not getting your vibe here. Like I'm not agreeing with you. Besides the lunge and the hinge, which
yeah.
it seems we already do, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yep. So there are YouTubers and other individuals out there that talk about the world of fitness being very separated, all the different disciplines being very separated, and possibly incorporating them together to form a more, I don't know, holistic understanding, I suppose, of health and fitness.
Yeah.
So if you think about the world of bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, calisthenics, Olympic weightlifting, yeah, they're all very specialized sports. And it's hard to say that doing one of these, picking up one of these sports as your specialty makes you a fit human being. What do you think about that?
That's interesting you brought that up. You're right there, where there are different schools of thought, and they all have pros. They all have pros, and they all have cons. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, it just depends on what you like doing, what you feel comfortable doing, what you feel safe doing, and is that catered towards your goals?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to build muscle doing CrossFit. Just because I feel as though I can do it more effectively doing bodybuilding.
Yeah.
That's not to say I can't build muscle of CrossFit. I just won't enjoy it as much. And if I won't enjoy it as much, I won't adhere to the programming as much, and that would just affect my training.
Yeah.
And that would affect my goal in the long term.
Yeah. In saying that, it also doesn't mean because that we're bodybuilders, we can't, we're turned off by, say, powerlifting. We just don't derive our joy from hitting those big singles. Instead, we're more interested in, say, reaching hypertrophy for our muscles.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'll reword it just a bit. In my eyes, I am turned off by powerlifting, just because it's just so taxing on my central nervous system. My workouts are they're already long as it is.
Yeah.
They're already an hour and a half. That's enough.
Yeah.
If I'm concentrating on lifting those heavy ass weights, I have to start incorporating longer rest periods just so I can maximize my training. And at this point in my life, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
And my goals aren't to be as strong as possible.
They're not strength.
Yeah, they're not strength. Exactly right. So I'm not geared towards that.
Yeah. Sounds good.
But back to these compound movements. Besides these big three compound movements, what do you view as essential movements that
Just
must be done? Yeah,
to be-
big movements that you love doing.
Oh, I don't know about loving these, but I think the overhead press is one
Yeah,
of
that's
the
a
most
good one.
important.
That's a good one.
Yep. I also think the bent over row.
Oh, another solid one. Yeah, staple.
Yep. If I had to give you one more, I would say if we're not including lunges, which I think we've already talked about how important they are, then the last one I'd talk about would be just some kind of seated row.
Okay, interesting. I think
Maybe a pull-up.
Yeah, a pull up. Yeah, I would say pull up. They're already getting a row from the bent over row.
True.
So I'll do a vertical pull.
Yeah.
Yeah, a pull up, a weighted pull up.
Yeah, and I can see myself dangling off the edge of a cliff and just needing to be able to pull up.
Yeah,
Like-
for sure. So long story short, guys, the three big lifts: the bench, the deadlift, the squat. Barring any injuries, should be staple in your programming if you're looking to build muscle.
Pretty much no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. It should be staple. Well, variations of it.
Yeah.
So it can, for instance, instead of a conventional dead, it can be a sumo deadlift, stiff leg deadlift. Instead of a back squat, it can be a front squat, it can be a goblet squat. Instead of flat barbell bench, it can be dumbbell bench.
Yep.
It can be incline bench.
Yep.
But variations of it. Now, besides those three movements as well, what we've included, Billy's covered. So we've got the pull-ups, overhead press,
The bent over row.
the bent over row. I'm trying to think if there's another one. The lunge.
Yeah, the lunge.
The lunge. Like, these are all big compound movements as well. Dips.
Dips is huge.
The dips. These are also big compound movements that we include in our programming, and I feel should be looked favorably in your programming too. Just because compound, just based on that word, that means a lot.
Multiple
Or
muscles.
multiple of.
Yeah.
So you want to recruit the most amount of muscles in the short amount of time that you're willing to spend in the gym.
Yep.
Time you're willing to spend in the gym, I'm sorry. And yeah, you get most bang out of your buck out of these compound movements, and that's why I value them so much.
Yeah, and I think the reason that these compound movements are so important is because they're the ones that you can continuously increase weight on. And progressive overload is a term used to describe just working harder than you did previously. And you can't do that with isolated movements. For example, the bicep curl, you can't add too much weight. Side shoulder raise, those kind of movements are small movements with small dumbbells.
Yeah, to be fair, I get where you're coming from. The increase isn't going to be as much each week. It might be a kilo, it might be half a kilo, it might be quarter of a kilo. But the load that you're moving isn't the same.
Yeah.
You might be recruiting just one tiny section of the muscle. So unless you're really into sculpting that, then I would just stick to compound movements.
Yeah.
Build a solid foundation first before you look into sculpting.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
All right.
Outro.
Just to end the video, guys, one more time, Billy. If you're running short on time, what movements would you do? Name 5.
Bench press, squat, deadlift, overhead press, pull-ups.
That's 5. And that's exactly the ones I would do too. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, like our video, because it helps our algorithm oh so much. Done.
I don't like the call for subscription.
You have to, bro.
I get it.
Like, people do it.
I get it.